Hey Rebels, welcome back to the channel. Time to dive in for another weekly analysis. As you can see, we've had a pretty good run up in Bitcoin. Let's see, we have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven bars in one swing. And so I've filtered this tool that I have here to show me how often does Bitcoin have seven or greater bars in one swing direction. And you can tell it doesn't happen too often. And each time it does, he usually pauses. That's usually it's one of Gann's rules, seven or more, typically overextended. So you can see here it paused for a couple of months, and then yes, we had another push higher. That was followed by 8 month correction. I'm not expecting a lengthy correction like that, but as we were getting higher, I noticed a few influencers, some that I follow and respect quite a bit, were expecting higher prices and for Bitcoin to go much higher and to carry the alts with them. I was a little hesitant because we had so much in this swing direction. And so I'm basically kind of have been waiting for uh, us to put in a swing to the downside. And then once we carry on, that's just kind of a nice anchor point to give us some reference, and that's kind of how I view that. So far, we're still hanging out in very strong territory. I mean, we're above the old all-time highs that Bitcoin printed in the last cycle, and we have printed several of the highest weekly candles in Bitcoin's history, and we did just print the highest monthly candle in Bitcoin's history. So we're still in strong territory, but and we have lots of support to the downside. So I mean, am I expecting this to go crazy right away? No, and I've been saying that for a little while now. Some of the other evidence was too, we have the USDT dominance basically hanging out on the trend line that it's been on for a very long time. This is still a very messy chart, but I got a lot going on. But this trend line right here, it's only broken it once. And that was a while back when we had kind of a mini alt season last year. And you can see that we've just been kind of grinding it out between this trend line and this support line here. And so we're just grinding away right now. And until we break definitively through this, not really expecting to see significantly higher prices, at least in the altcoins. And so that's kind of where we're at there. We're still waiting. We're still waiting for those signals, and Bitcoin dominance is still very strong. Let me get rid of this as well. So we had those couple weeks there where we were looking good, like we might be getting somewhere, but Bitcoin dominance just keeps showing strength after strength. Ben Cowan is a good one to watch. He goes into this in a little bit more detail about Bitcoin pairs against their alts, and typically they will return to a certain level before going higher, and it kind of seems like that's where we're going to go. So not going to I'm going to expect that Bitcoin is still going to outperform over the next, several weeks probably, and that doesn't mean that the altcoins won't go up. It just means that they will go up less than Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will probably still be dominant. And it's been a really dangerous thing to try to call the top of Bitcoin dominance, which is usually what marks the beginning of alt season. If we go back in the previous cycles, you can see, Bitcoin dominance rising, and then when it tanks right here, this is when we have an alt season. It's a very short period of time. Same thing back here, very short period of time. Bitcoin dominance just pukes, and some of that money gets into altcoins, right? So basically, the play here would have been to be into Bitcoin pretty much since the lows for the entire time. You'd get your 5 to 6x, and then maybe towards the very end of the cycle, you might be able to put a small portion of that into the altcoins just for the last leg. I played this cycle wrong where I figured, oh, well, I'll invest in these strong alts in the bear market lows, and it's with we're just not there yet, I guess, with long-term investing with altcoins. I think they're a little too volatile. Bitcoin kind of stole the show this cycle because it's the mainstream adoption cycle, I think. And that's just kind of the way we are. So either way, still a lot of trade ranges in the altcoins, and that's kind of what I'm here doing. And we just live and we learn. That's kind of the way it is, right? So let's go into the exchange volume. Exchange volume, we had this breakout of this double top, which was nice. That gave us a nice little rally, a few weeks ago. And, so really what I'm looking for here is it would be nice to hold some support above this level. You can see we're kind of rounding off here, but basically, really, I just want it to grind around at these higher levels and still continue to form higher lows. Right here, we had a double bottom. If this were to create a higher low, that would be great because then we have a higher high from here and here. That's a higher high, and then we continue to print higher lows. So then we'd be an uptrend in the volume, in the exchange volume. That would be a good sign. I would like to see that. It looks like as far as the search terms go, it looks like again, retail was late to the party, and we had the maximum, uh, search volume at the very peak of Bitcoin's price on May 22nd. So as you can see from there, the interest has died off. Things are getting quieter, and yeah, so it just not. I don't think we're ready to blast off yet. And Jason Bazzino has a lot of, and also Michael have a lot of cycle analysis where they're going over different decade cycles, and all of those kind of seem like they're pointing to kind of a grind over the summer, and then higher into the second part of the year. So we'll kind of just see how that goes. But either way, I'm happy with my positioning so far, and it's basically just kind of a waiting game. I mean, you can definitely tell that the volatility is increasing. You can see just between this grind out and this grind out, the candles are much larger and they whipsaw quicker. So that's you know, part of the dangers of getting in this late in the cycle is that the volatility is much higher. So, and then also, as far as the timing goes, we're kind of reaching, like, as far as the timing goes, we're definitely not early. We're definitely getting towards the later end of the cycle. So, I wanted to kind of actually let me just get rid of this here, so that will clear that up a little bit. And I can get rid of, actually, I'm going to keep that. But I wanted to just kind of see how long do we typically have, once we get a breakout here, how much longer do we typically have? I can kind of go like so fashion. Yep. And actually, I think I can actually put this on logarithmic just to make my life a little bit easier. Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to and we're just going to measure basically from the breach of the highs. We're just going to measure how long from the breach of the highs till the end of the cycle, typically. Now, this would be in weeks, right? So we got 34 weeks there. And this is kind of just rough. 45 there, right? So, and I think that's all the history that we have here. So just just doing that very, very quickly. So we got 30, basically 34, 45 weeks after the breach of the highs here. So what I can do here is measure out. We got 35 to 45 weeks. So then what I like to do is I'll just get like a little rectangle here and kind of draw this out here to give us kind of somewhat of an idea. And so what we have here is January or June 2025 to August 2025. So it's going to be the first timeline to watch. This isn't the only, I can do more time analysis in other videos, but I mean, it's kind of eerily, eerily close, right? So it's just an interesting thing to see here where, and in fact, a lot of people right now are calling for a similar structure here where we kind of had this double top and then we went into a bear market. A lot of people think that that's kind of where we're at now. I would argue against that just because we had so much growth out of that breakout. But we will just have to see. Anyway, it's the first timing to look at, right? So anyway, mid-June to August, we'll just have to see. I mean, if we're continuing higher, these might be a time area where we see some resistance. It could also end up, as far as the timing goes, it could also mark a low in the market. I mean, I'll make that clear as well. We don't know exactly what to expect in these time frames, but just having them up ahead of time keeps us aware. So I just wanted to mention that too. If we go down to the daily quick, just to get a little more granular, you can see we had a lot of all-time high daily closes, and And we were looking pretty strong here because we consolidated. I had this projection here, this move projected, this first move projected off of this low here. And it was actually looking pretty strong, but we never made it up to the 100% level. And we are actually starting to um, see some action around this 50% level. So we'll just have to see how we go from here, if we can continue downward or not. Another thing that I want to mention that Michael Bazzino goes into a lot more detail is he's looking at Elliott wave, and what he's looking for now is basically a wave two. So this would have been a wave one, and we're looking for a wave two against the trend, and then the wave three is typically the longest, strongest of the move, and that would actually be a wave three, a wave three of a wave three of a wave five. So I know that's kind of a mouthful, but either way, it's not gonna, and this could be a short-lived correction, but I guess really what I'm saying is it's just not going to surprise me if it takes a while for Bitcoin to, uh, you know, get out of this. Basically, just because we've seen in the past, as we looked, 7 bars in one swing direction typically puts a pause on things. Now we are going to be later in the cycle, so I'll actually have to go back and look at and see. Actually, what we could do is we could probably just do that right now and go back and see what happens. How does that change? Once we've broken the all-time high, the previous cycle highs, how does that affect things? So let me just go and turn that on just because we can and see how many times we've had 7 or more bar counts after breaching all-time highs, right? Which is basically where we're at right now. We've reached the previous cycle highs, and we can just see, at least in these, the corrections are shorter. Like we've had pretty large, long corrections in this bull market, but it seems like once we get into more price discovery, this one was like a 2-month correction. This was a 1-month correction. That was a 2-week correction. You can see the corrections kind of get shorter and shorter. So this final leg in the bull market is shorter relative to the rest of it, but you can see visually that it's much steeper. So, you get a lot of gains out of this final push as well. But the problem with that is that it's more volatile. Let's see, we had the same thing here. And this one we had 10 weeks and then just a small correction. And then we went up for another 1, 2, 3, 4, another month before we, had a smaller correction. So, anything can happen basically in the markets is what I'm getting at, but it's just nice to know what does it typically do in history. Like before it breaches the previous cycle highs, if you have kind of an extended move, it's a long grind before you go higher. But it seems that once you have breached the previous cycle highs, those corrections get a little shorter, right? You can kind of see that just visually. These corrections are a lot more snappy rather than this cycle that we're in right now, where this correction was like 8 months, this correction was 3 months, but now that we're sitting pretty strongly into old high territory. And that's the thing too, is like we really did just come back and retest this, and we've just come out of here with a lot of strength. So yeah, I'm basically longer term bullish with a little bit of caution, because we do have some time analysis suggesting some significant market action coming up here in late June to August that we'll just have to keep an eye on, and we will just have to see how Bitcoin reacts. Can Bitcoin go up from here? Yes, it can. I mean, we just saw that in the last cycle where we basically had you know 10 bars in one swing direction to the upside, one tiny little correction here, and then it was off to the races. That can definitely happen, but I think it's just trying to stay measured, right? Like, luckily, we're already positioned. So Bitcoin may outperform the alts. Bitcoin may outperform the alts in the nearer term. And then basically what I think everybody also thinks that there's not going to be an alt season, which is exactly what happened last alt season. Basically, before alts popped off, everybody got super bearish on alts, and then things took off, right? So otherwise, and a lot of people were really afraid of this here too. Like everybody had their hopes and dreams, and then it went against them. We had this tiny little 7% correction, and that brought a lot more fear into the market, which is good. It's important to wipe out some leverage. That's basically what happened here. People got over leveraged in Bitcoin, not necessarily the altcoins. The altcoins are still pretty cool, and so we're having kind of just a natural pullback here, So, but we're in strong territory, and this whole move has shown a lot of strength. And what we would like to see, I would say, is for this extension to, I mean, if this extension fails here, well, and then we start getting, below these significant levels, that paints a different picture. It doesn't mean it's all over, but it also means that Bitcoin is losing its momentum, and it's quite possible that we don't see um, much higher prices from here. Uh, get my chart back here. If we were to see some weakness below these levels here and start testing the speed line from the underside or start testing this from the underside, that's showing a lot of weakness. And then I would say it's going to be a lot harder or take a lot longer anyway than people would like for us to breach this old trend line and make our way into like the 120s area. So we'll just have to play that by ear. But honestly, the long and the short of it is we basically caught the altcoins right out of their bottoms. We had this bottoming structure in a lot of the altcoins. We come back here, down here, and we're, the selling slowed. We're starting to get higher lows out of here. We had an overbalance in time and price right now. Altcoins are in a pretty weak position right now relative to Bitcoin. That's the whole thing. So relative, if you're measuring it relative to Bitcoin, pretty much all the alts are weak relative to Bitcoin. That's basically been the whole cycle. Bitcoin dominance has just absolutely ruled, and we don't have any signs yet, clear signs that the Bitcoin dominance is going to fall. One thing that we did have that I do like to see, and I haven't back tested this yet, but we do have this 3 bars down signal where we had 3 bars down from a significant high. That usually puts a pause on things. It happened in gold not too long ago. I haven't checked gold in a long time, but it happened quite a while ago where we had this 3 bars down, and yes, prices came higher, but nothing compared to the entire run up. We had this nice strong run up, then we had this 3 bars down, and now you can see we've kind of just gone sideways, right? Like we have basically just been hovering around that 33 to 35 $100 an ounce price point, right? So anyway, that's something that I'm keeping track. It doesn't mean that prices don't go higher. It just means, that trend that was so strong has definitely slowed down. And you can just see that visibly, actually, that where we have, lower highs and lower lows forming. So it'll be interesting to see how Bitcoin dominance reacts to this. Like I said, I haven't back tested this, but it is a potential sign of weakness, even though, Bitcoin dominance is also in a stronger position here. We're just in the upper end of that 50% tool. So, and we've got a printed double bottom here. We broke out of that double bottom. So let's actually do a projection here just because we can. We're looking at it. What I do is this tool is I project this move that right here, and I project it off of this low right here. You can see we busted through the 50% level, and usually when it breaks through any level, it usually goes on to test the next level, and it looks like we've basically kind of getting some selling pressure here at this level, but also this 1.5 level, which is a very common place to get support or resistance, is right on this support band that I have here, or resistance, however you want to look at it. Actually, I mean, we're kind of in a resistance zone right now. You can see that when we came up here, this kind of has slowed things down. So, anyway, that's kind of where we're at there, and we'll just have to see. I mean, maybe we get up here and we form a higher low, and we get something kind of like so fashion, where we come up and we don't quite make it, and we start falling from there, but we really won't know until we get an overbalance in this time and price, the timing doesn't happen until, the end of June, right? So we'll just have to see how that pans out. But when we have an overbalance in time and price on the Bitcoin dominance, that's when I think we can be very secure in the altcoin season that has come to fruition. A lot of people are saying that won't happen. The thing is that also some alts have gone up this entire cycle and some have not performed, and some have given back all of their gains while some of them have only given back some of their gains, which is why you just kind of have to get into the chart analysis for yourself. And instead of relying on people like me on YouTube telling you what to do or what's going up or down or anything like that, you better to be a student of the markets and just go in and dictate for yourself. I mean, I drew this purple resistance band here a long time ago, just based on previous market action that I had seen here where, there were turning points, and I put it up here a long time ago, and you can see that it's, at least right on the money with this one, where we have seen some resistance coming on. So whether this holds, it'll be yet to be seen, but if it doesn't hold, then I would expect it to probably come up and retest some of these other zones, and we'll just have to see how it reacts to that, and then we'll have to move our overbalance and time and price up with it if in fact we have to do that. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there with this week. We're basically, I have all my positions. There's a couple of them that got liquidated that were smaller. Not really worried about that. That's the name of the game. They were small caps, which is why I didn't put a lot of money in there. And also we don't have like massive volume signals yet where there's a bunch of volume coming back into the market. So I basically have it down. I cashed all the way out of virtuals because we had some good profits. And because I could see how Bitcoin was becoming overextended and the altcoins were in a weak position, I was like, you know what? I was expecting a pullback at some point and have been, and it just seemed right for the taking. So took the profits on that one, and so we have cash on the side. Part of that is because it just helps with the downturns. When you have a drawback in the market, it's if you have 10 to 20% in cash, well, then your drawdown is a little bit less, and then you have more capital to deploy at the lows so that when the markets go back up, you'll also get an outsized return. So you have less losses and potentially more return as you kind of balance that out a little bit. And so when things are looking frothy and hot, having a little bit more allocated to cash can be a good thing. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So I had a little bit of cash waiting on the side. And this is actually a good learning lesson here, because if I just do this on the weekly, I got into ENA on a break of this swing here, which put it into an uptrend on the weekly time frame. And the thing that's just the stark reality to this is that yes, we were in profit for a while, but in order to form more structure, I mean, if we turn from here and form a higher low, it's like we're basically right at break even right now. So we've had to stomach being in profit to down to break even, and some of these even to into a little bit of a loss. And that's just the way it is. And then the whole thesis is I believe that the structural low is in, so I don't believe that the prices will breach these lows. And if they do, then we're out of the trade, and that's all there is to it. And that's all there is to it, right? So this also was in profit for a while. We broke this. We were in a weekly uptrend, and coming back down to retest some of these levels. But we are also finding a lot of support. We found support on this 50% level for the last 3 weeks. Strong sign. We'll just have to see where we go from here. Anything can happen, but as long as we're forming higher lows, that's kind of what we're looking for. So, just wanted to make mention of that too. Is that when you get into a trade, you may be in profit and then you may be at a loss. You just have to have the plan ahead of time. My whole plan was, I believe the structural low is in. I've set my stop loss down here at the lows to where if they get swept, then I'm out of the trade, and I was wrong. But the reason I'm in the trade is because the risk to reward is insane, where I'm risking this much move for the potential of this move. That's an 880% move. That's a 9x, right? And so I could make this trade if I had a 8-to-1. I could make this trade 8 times, and I would only need to be right 1 time, right? That's the idea. It's like, how can I be wrong more than I'm right and still win? That's kind of the name of the game. So risk reward and just risk management, right? So it's part of the reason why I'm in a little bit of a cash today. And I did round off some of my positions in ENA and WorldCoin, and those are going to be my larger positions going forward. And, not necessarily expecting anything wild and great until I'm basically just kind of holding off, positioned at the lows, and now I get to wait. well, and I don't have to chase. When prices go higher, everybody thinks altcoin season is dead. They're going to have to come in at higher prices, and that's just kind of the reality of that. So anyhow, hopefully that was helpful. Let me know. Leave a comment down below if there's anybody watching this video, even if you just give me a thumbs up and just write anything in the comments. Thanks. Anything. It definitely helps get my content out there. I just want to help people kind of keep a level head in these markets and stay on the right side of the markets. I mean, basically, we've been calling it for the whole time. I mean, when prices were up here, I was like, oh, looking a little hot, probably going to be a top. Prices came down here. I'm like, oh, I think we're at a low. As we were in this move, I was expecting some resistance at these levels, and because we were overextended, not to expect anything crazy, and that's basically what we've got. So we had a down week. We'll see. I mean, it's really not going to surprise me to see prices come back down, test this trend line, test this 50% level, which is going to scare a lot of people, and it may push our altcoins down. But then again, the thesis is that we would more likely to form a higher low because we've had overbalances in time and price. So anyhow, that's it for me. We'll talk to you later.